Yo, this is the funniest I've ever seen.
Before Twitter complains, I made yet another Caitlin Coy video. In all fairness, this one isn't exactly about her, but mostly her composer/roommate. He tried several times to inject himself into the drama, for some weird reason, but, luckily for him, I'll gladly bring it to fruition, and Caitlin calls me the keemstar of the Splatoon community. But I digress. Sampling Kid is a composer, known for his contributions to the fan Splatoon idol scene, most notably his instrumentals for Caitlin Coy's Octoprism. Though, enough of a synopsis, I doubt anyone actually cares about his beginnings and whatnot, so a few disclaimers are due. This video will not make much sense, unless you're caught up with the Caitlin Coy lore, though, I'm sure someone will have a TLDR in the comments section somewhere. Still, I'll have a link in the description with a playlist for your convenience. Secondly, as usual, please do not harass anyone featured. This video is for documentation purposes, not an excuse to harass anyone. Though, seeing that's now out of the way, let's get into this. As I stated before, Sampling has commented on my videos regarding Caitlin a few times, but his recent comment actually caught my attention for once, as he stated,
"Very interesting that this video goes up a few days after the people that hate Caitlin raided my server with racist and homophobic slurs and posting gore, just because I work with her on music. You are a one-trick pony and should try developing actual content."
The fact he took the time to leave a comment, proceeding to insinuate the timing of my video's upload had any correlation at all to the alleged situation in his Discord server is ridiculous.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Like, I saw how Dumbsville, another YouTuber, made a video which was quite literally a mashup of his Life is Strange series, and then thought to myself, why not do the same thing? It really isn't that deep. It's cheap, sure, but at this point in time, I already had several videos in the works, not to mention, I was busy with my personal life. And thus, the video was made. Sampling would have easily known this was the case, if he actually watched the video, instead of running to the comments to victimize himself. He didn't even need to watch the whole thing, as I stated what type of video it was at the beginning. Hey, I've been gone for a while. I plan to bring back the upload consistency eventually. Content is currently on the way. Don't worry, it's just taking a while. But I decided in the meantime, why not compile the current state of the Caitlin Coy saga, all in one video, considering some of you don't know what a playlist is. It will be a learning experience for all of us, surely.
Wow.
Or maybe he was aware, and just wanted an excuse to complain. His roommate loves to pull this stunt, so I wouldn't be surprised, but who knows. Nevertheless, ignoring the fact this guy was heavily implying something so egregious, I actually ended up making a tweet discussing this, which is now deleted, as I nuke tweets at least once a month, but I'm sure Caitlin has it in a document, or Google Drive somewhere, considering the contents of my previous video. Though, Sampling, unsurprisingly, considering everyone in Caitlin's circle constantly stalks my Twitter, like it's a full-time job, found the tweet, and replied rather swiftly, stating,
"You're full of crap. You wanna go off and answer to drama so bad, yet don't bother making a video on the people that are saying and doing generally horrible and garbage. You just get off on harassing people, and it's disgusting.
You're acting like I knew your server was allegedly raided prior to you telling me. I understand you're biased considering your affiliation with Coy, but to villainize me for not being omniscient is insane. Bro thinks I'll make a video on a bunch of kids who raided his server. Okay, let's pause here, just briefly. This guy was really seething in my replies, simply because I didn't make a video on some kids who raided his server. Now let me remind you, I didn't know this raid took place. Heck, I didn't even know he had a server prior to being told. And don't even get me started with how I didn't even know him like that. The fact he's entitled to the point where he assumes I must immediately know who he is, and his circumstances enough to deliberately sideline them, is utterly absurd. So him making the cognitive decision to throw a fit over this, is just a pathetic display, one of many I'm sure. Although, notice how Sampling mentioned this certain word here, for the rest of the video. I'll call it a naughty C. Remember this, as it'll be somewhat important later.
Only after you made content about Coy was this level of harassment present, and now I'm having to deal with it myself just because I made music for her. Take some accountability. You're the only dude making this content. Now I'm led to believe you're not involved? Biased, lol. You're the only dude making this content. You're the only dude making this content.
This one is actually rather interesting, as in my previous video, a screenshot from 2019, soon to be 5 years ago, showed how Caitlin had detractors, years before I even made a name for myself in the community. If this isn't telling, I don't know what is. alluding the supposed harassment only once appeared, after the release of my videos, is a rather big leap in logic. Still, I'd be a fool to disregard how discourse surrounding her has changed, after the release of my videos of course, but to say I'm single-handedly responsible, is like I mentioned before, a leap in logic. Though, for the biased remark, yes, I called him biased, because he quite literally is. Confirmed by Caitlyn herself, sampling, cited as Sam in streams, and tweets, is her roommate. He is aware she has endangered minors on several occasions, and yet, deflects at every given opportunity. I'm not saying he has to publicly denounce her behavior, but to act like my videos are just plain harassment, after knowing all this, is what being biased is. Finally, elaborating upon the accountability remark, people in Caitlyn's server have compared me to an individual who previously preyed on literal children several times, and not once have I turned around and blamed Caitlyn, in spite of the fact messages talking about me in a positive light would have the user banned or punished in the matter of minutes. They have spread disinformation, sent me death threats, and more, but I have yet to blame Caitlyn for these wrongdoings, despite the fact there is enough evidence to support her encouraging this behavior. Heck, she even hinted to getting her fans to spam my comments section once, in an attempt to get one of my videos on her taken down.
If enough people pointed out in his video comments where he was a hypocrite, overstated harm, left out context, brought up his harassment against me, and where he freaking lied, maybe he'd take his video down. Is that calling for a witch hunt?
What?
This woman has done so much to me, what I state in my videos isn't even half of it. So the fact he'd have the audacity to ask me to take responsibility when Caitlyn herself refuses to, is only strengthening my assumption that Sam is biased, which isn't surprising, just disappointing. Like I said, I don't expect him to publicly denounce her or anything, but if you can't hold Caitlyn to the same principles you so heavily inflict on others, respectfully, keep your mouth shut.
Embarrassing!
Listen to yourself, you refuse to acknowledge how Koi's behavior has been unacceptable. That's what bias is. May I remind you, she allowed 18+ content to be viewed by children several times, which hunted a minor, but you ignore all that and blame me for the actions of other people?
You're switching the subject. The fact that Kluger commented on my channel after I responded to your tweet, thus only then seeing my Twitter, means at the very least that people responsible for raids are following you or have an eye on your content.
He then proceeded to show 2 screenshots, captioning it with,
"You're so stupid, lol."
In the screenshots, the first features Kluger, a prevalent character in the lore, and a video he made, where Caitlyn Koi commented, with 2 replies to said comment being of me, and another individual. This isn't really relevant, I just thought it was funny that he cut out how my reply actually ratioed her. But I digress. For some reason, Sampling thought a screenshot of me commenting on his video, which was a shitpost, may I remind you, was a gotcha moment.
Yeah, that brother's starving.
Like, I didn't even know this video existed, until I was told by a server member. Caitlyn commented on it, and upon checking, lo and behold, she did in fact leave one. Though, I thought it was borderline hilarious, comical even, how Caitlyn felt the need, the urge, to let all 28 of Kluger's subscribers know that the obvious AI cover of Ninjas in Paris was an AI cover. And thus, replied to her message with, ratio. A bit childish, sure, but just a bit of harmless fun at the end of the day. Like, let's be real here, these AI covers of YouTubers and fictional characters alike are extremely popular online. You always know you're watching one within the first few seconds. Not to mention, Kluger is just some kid who likes to troll. This is common knowledge at this point. So Caitlyn unironically going out of her way to do this is kinda funny, you've got to admit. Her comment may as well be generated, because the joke writes it's
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But yet again, I digress. In response to this, I really shouldn't have to explain to a guy over a decade older than me how this screenshot is irrelevant. This conversation isn't worth having. I hope to have a genuine talk, I really did, but bro's literally grasping at straws.
Nah, it's relevant. Kluger is involved for the raids, yet you are interacting with their YouTube channel while they comment on my video after I responded to your post. Your "I don't condone raids" act can be dropped now. You're caught by your own inflated ego.
Me commenting on an obvious joke video 2 months ago somehow equals I entice server raids? You're grasping at literal straws. I don't condone raiding, but apparently since I commented on his video once, I am liable for his actions? You are trying so hard to use me as a scapegoat.
Your goose is cooked. Happy Thanksgiving.
He locked his Twitter account a few minutes later. Now, setting aside the fact I reside in Europe and don't celebrate Thanksgiving, he unfortunately caught himself in yet another one of his delusions, as he sent a screenshot of one of the apparent raiders being present in my server. As much as I do not condone such conduct, by Sam's logic, several people who sent me death threats are present in Caitlyn's server. Surely that means she condones said behavior, right? If we were in an active dialogue, I'm sure he'd scramble to muster another excuse for her, yet again. Still, like I stated prior, this conversation came to a close, as Sam ran to lock his Twitter account, for some reason, and this proved troublesome, as I wanted to make a quick video about the situation. So what did I do? I not so politely asked him to unprivate his Twitter. I'd be lying if I said I expected this to work, but he actually responded stating,
When you quit sending your after me, I might.
Are you out of your mind right now?
does he forget this is the Splatoon community we're talking about? Are these naughty C's in the room with us now? The following day, the 24th of November, 2023, Caitlyn made a tweet on her 18+ account, stating,
We finally have definitive proof that the neon behind my server and livestream raids is part of the people doxing me and sending me snuff films. And we also have proof that a certain yellow gremlin co-signs this behavior. What a shock.
Unforgivable harassment aside, the fact she'd find a way to drag me into this, yet again, is just another disappointing display. This isn't the first time she's done this, and definitely won't be the last, but come on. Also, if you're unsure what she meant by Yellow Gremlin, that's the nickname she gave me, purely out of spite by the way. Did I forget to mention she's 29? But I digress. It's clear Sam relayed the screenshots from the day prior to Caitlyn, under the false pretense of proof, and according to both Sam and Caitlyn, as she called it proof, one of the raiders being in my server, and me commenting on one of their videos, apparently means I co-sign such behavior. Like I stated before, their own logic is a fallacy. Only 2 days after Caitlyn's tweet, on the 26th of November, Sam made a tweet of his own, to his at the time, private Twitter account, stating,
The Accusation Brigade has been harassing not just Koi, but me and a few of her friends. First attacking her, trying to elicit seizures and general ableism, then invading my Discord with images of gore and racism, homophobia, followed finally by the mocking of my father's death.
Following with,
He claims to have nothing to do with the raids, yet he's in very close contact with the supposed kicked raided under my nose in my server, literal He at the very least is a Nazi sympathizer and enabler, and doesn't care what his followers do because he's one of them.
I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon?
See what I mean? He's utterly infatuated with that word. But let's ignore the fact he blatantly called me one, for now, and let's dissect this. Let me reiterate, once again, this is unfortunately a per-video occurrence at this point. I do not care how much you dislike Koi, I quite literally do not care, but if Sam is telling the truth, the behavior as he described is unacceptable. With that in mind, shoehorning me into this, and using me as a scapegoat, is just as unacceptable, as not only did he state I have a naughty C brigade, called me a sympathizer, an enabler, but at the end he went full mask off, and just called me one. This is slander at this point. I'm sorry people have been harassing you, but to try this hard to involve me is ludicrous. Next, addressing Kluger, as Sam claimed I was, I quote, in very close contact with him. I'm not sure what he meant by this, as I have over 400 members in my Discord server. Just because you're in it, doesn't necessarily mean we're close by any means. You'll never believe this, but just because someone who associates with me, in any way or form, subscribes to certain beliefs, doesn't automatically mean I do the same. Shocking, I know. Yes, Kluger was kicked from my server, as I stated in my first video on Caitlyn. Kicked. He was kicked for organizing a server raid within mine, under my nose. You are right for loosely quoting my video. Glad you managed to take away at least something. Congratulations. Though, I'd like to remind you, kicked isn't interchangeable with banned. I have made it clear in my server, if a user is to break any of the rules, outside of Oceaner, we as server staff will not get involved, with a few exceptions of course. Like I said, he received a punishment due to how the situation stemmed from Oceaner, then branched out. The affair occurred between October and November of 2022, roughly 17 months ago, soon to be 2 years ago. The fact he's shocked a kicked server member, not banned, kicked, rejoined between that 17-month time span, is ridiculous. Also, can we please just take a step back and acknowledge Sam, a man who's pushing 30, if not already, is repeatedly calling a 15-year-old kid one of those naughty C's. Why, you ask? He joined his server and spammed the N-word, and from his auto-moderation, it appears the messages didn't even go through, and were immediately deleted. You did pay attention in history class, right? Then surely you wouldn't downplay something so deplorable, and compare their actions to those of an edgy child on Discord, surely, right? I'd be more empathetic if the messages actually went through. We all know how disruptive spamming can be, but according to the screenshots provided by Sam, they didn't even go through. The only people who presumably saw this was him and his server staff. It really isn't as bad as he's making it out to be. Still, I don't condone the behavior of joining one server and spamming slurs, but calling a literal child something so irredeemable over practices that are juvenile at best, racist at worst, is such a wayward mentality to have. In comparison, here is a short list of what you're accusing these children of. And this is what they've done, according to the receipts provided. I need not to elaborate on how this comparison is utterly ridiculous, not to mention, where is this brigade he spoke of? There only appears to be 2 kids who took part in said behavior, according to the screenshot at least. I've never heard of a brigade consisting of 2 children before. Yet again, let me reiterate, this behavior is unacceptable, but sampling reaching this hard to blame me for their actions needs to be discussed. It's not my fault people are doing this to you. I'm not a babysitter. Stop blaming me for the acts of entirely different people. Fast forward 2024, the 7th of January, a friend of mine saw the back and forth on Twitter and decided to do a bit of digging of their own. She joined his server and sent me several screenshots, as on the 11th of December, 2023, he stated.
Yeah, okay, so my suspicions have been confirmed by me. The person harassing Koi and raided my server the other day is very much interchangeably in contact with Reacquay. I am going to keep the server under lockdown for a while.
He posted the same screenshot he sent me on Twitter, circling Kluger's name, captioning it with,
It was always Reacquay. He just has his henchmen to do his dirty work for him.
That sucks, man.
This is great news actually. There is hard evidence now. He can't refute that.
Actually I can, and did. Like I said, if he firmly believes this, that clearly means Koi supports death threats and harassment, right? Irregardless, most of the messages are simply retreads of what he said on Twitter, but what really caught my eye was this.
So I pulled the receipts. I did everything I could do to trace him to the people that raided my server since he was telling me I was insane for accusing him. Now people have an idea who he really is. Nobody gets a really cool person role that is a known raider.
I didn't call him insane, simply an implication, but since he's oh so self-aware, I guess it's no longer a mere suggestion. If he's banking on Kluger having that role as a gotcha moment, he's sadly mistaken. As I stated in my role information channel, under the unique heading, the requirements to getting said role is a secret. He's not the only one with it either, so it's not a custom role unique to him or anything. There are several ways to achieve it, such as boosting the server for a certain amount of time, which he did. It really isn't that deep. The fact he'd immediately assume we were in close contact, due to him having a literal role on Discord, is genuinely absurd, grown man by the way. If Sam is also trying to suggest we're friends due to that role, he'd still be incorrect, as friends of mine actually have a special role stating as such. I need not to elaborate further, he's quite obviously blowing things out of proportion. Besides, if that's not enough, shortly after my friend joined, she was swiftly banned. Unsurprising of course, and he ran to private his account, yet again. But, this time we had a twist, as her Twitter was oddly blocked by him as well. What makes this unsettling, is how she didn't have her Twitter linked to her Discord, and vice versa, she didn't follow him on this account either. How did sampling know they were the same person? See how I say Caitlin's circle is extremely creepy. Right after my previous video as well, really makes you wonder what else they've been up to. But if you thought it ended there, you'd be wrong, as on the 1st of February he unprivated his Twitter, alongside a tweet stating,
I have personally decided to stop working on Octoprism after this next Coral Star collab. The amount of harassment and stress it brings is too much and she does nothing to address the allegations against her. At the end of the day, she is one client and I have a business.
Following.
It was a very hard decision to make. I tried very hard to keep Octoprism, but it became impossible. Meanwhile, I'm getting raids and messages because of CV's community. I tried to keep working on it as long I could, but it's not worth it. I wish the next poor soul luck.
That's rough, buddy.
As unfortunate as it is he felt the need to stop cooperating with Caitlin, due to apparent harassment, my issue is how he's still trying to paint me as the bad guy here. I failed to mention this before, but the same people he alleges are harassing him, attempted to raid my server, got stopped due to security measures, then proceeded to join a server owned by a Twitter mutual, and raided that one, purely because I was in it. I quite literally had to apologize to said mutual, despite the fact I wasn't at fault. The same people leaked my old Snapchat account. It was so bad in fact, a document was made about their activities, and not only did they get me, Caitlin, but others within the community. So much happens behind the scenes that I simply do not address. This is one of many. So the fact he is so adamantly attempting to claim all, and any harassment that comes his, or Caitlin's way, is immediately caused by me, is truly insanity. I'm not the Italian mob boss he's trying to make me out to be. If anything, we are in the same boat here. Main difference is that I don't instinctively run to Twitter to complain. And yet, I'm still the one being relentlessly villainized. To be completely honest, this video was actually supposed to be made numerous months ago. For precision's sake, I have reason to believe it's been in limbo for about 5 months, but every time I wanted to obtain the receipts, he'd run to private his Twitter. He did this about 4 times. Talk about paranoia.
Coward.
However, I believe the main reason Sampling is attempting to take all his anger out on me is due to the fact the people allegedly harassing him are children, and knows if he actually went out of his way to witch hunt them, like what Caitlin did, he'd receive massive backlash. Not to mention, why blame a bunch of unnamed children when you could easily just dogpile on me instead, right? One of my biggest gripes is how Caitlin, and Sampling by association, refuse to admit they just want an excuse to blame me for their inconveniences. I mean, it's irrefutably obvious at this point. I've been banned from numerous Splatoon servers, purely because Caitlin was in them. People have joined my server to harass me over my videos on her, got sent death threats, and not once did I run to Twitter, blaming her for these happenings. How curious. Although, the same as usual, please don't harass anyone featured. This video is for documentation purposes, not an excuse to witch hunt others. But yeah, that's all from me, thanks for watching.